Mounty here from MauGT. The video you're about to see here is one I talked about a little bit on Twitter. My final, true thoughts on the Blackberry DTEK50. So that's actually the phone that I'm recording this quick little clip on. Since the video is about it, I figured I'd record this short little clip on the phone's front-facing camera, just to give you a test of what it's like. But really, the main reason why I included this clip is because I did not edit the video that you're about to see. The video was edited by one of my really good friends, Jack from the Kirby's Tales. He has his own YouTube channel, and I just really want to give him a shout out. I hit him up, I told him that I was having editing issues, and he came through. It took him a little while, which, I mean, I don't really care. He's busy, so I can understand that. But it was worth it because he did a great job. I looked at the edits when I'm recording this little clip. It's after the video has been edited, so I'm currently processing the video. That I'm going to get this clip added onto it. I'll patch the whole thing together and then go ahead and upload it. So I just want to give a huge shout out to him. So guys, make sure to subscribe to his channel. It's going to be in the description. It's also going to be at the end of the video if you can make it that far. It's like a 42-minute video. It's a pretty long video. I've got a lot to say about this phone. So make sure you subscribe to him. His Twitch will also be in the description, so make sure to check that out. He's got great content across all the platforms that he posts on. Make sure to also follow him on Twitter, like his posts, get him some likes on his videos, get him some views, subscribe to his channel because he's I can't thank him enough for editing this video, getting me out of the pickle that I was in. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. Again, make sure to support him. All his links will be in the description below, and enjoy. What is up, guys? Mauna here from MauGT, back again with another video. And as you can see in front of the camera here is the Blackberry DTEK50. So a little while ago I made a video titled, I believe it was titled, My New Phone, the Blackberry DTEK50. If you haven't watched that video, go ahead and watch that video before you watch this one. It's just probably a good idea based on what I'm about to say in this one. So there are a couple things that I would like, well, not really a couple, it's really just one thing. Actually, yeah, there are a couple things, two exactly, that I would like you to take note of, that I will address later in this video. One, right up there in the top right corner, where that says 19%, I want you to take note of that, and the fact that it is currently plugged in right now. And the second thing that I want you to take note of is the fact that the case that I showed off in the first video, which again, if you haven't seen that, go ahead and check that out. I want you to take note of the fact that the case is not on the phone right now. And I will address both of those things later on in this video. So I've had a good amount of time to spend with the DTEK50 and really get a feel for how the phone is like. What it's like to wake up, turn on the phone, and have to use it every single day. From about 7, 8 in the morning to around 10 at night is about when I use this phone, because I wake up at like 7, I go to school, I'm not using the phone all throughout school, but there are times when I am using the phone and times when I'm not using the phone. And because it's summer and I've got like all the days to myself, I've really been using this phone a lot. So I have a lot to share in terms of my experience with this phone, and not very much of it is good. So that's why I was saying you should watch that video so you know what my initial impressions were, and then come back to this video, because this is kind of going to be a comprehensive review of what I think about this phone and whether or not I would recommend it to anyone, who this phone is for. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So to start off, the Blackberry DTEK50 is of course made by Blackberry. Now Blackberry is not really known for making Android devices. Blackberry is most popular when it comes to Blackberry OS. And you know, if you're running a business, or you're in business, or maybe you've used one of their phones before, then you know about Blackberry. They had their own operating system called Blackberry 10 OS. They made custom phones that ran that custom software. For the average general consumer, they weren't very popular devices because they didn't have the apps like Instagram, Snapchat. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Some other like really popular apps and games that are on Android and iOS were simply not available, which is why those phones didn't sell very well, which is why I believe BlackBerry doesn't really directly sell any Blackberry 10 OS powered devices because they didn't do very well when it comes to general consumers. So what BlackBerry wanted to do was create a phone that more people would want to buy because it ran a more popular operating system, Android. Android is one of, if not the world's most popular mobile operating system. iOS may be the most popular in the United States, but if we're talking on a global, worldwide scale, you will find more Android-powered devices than you will find iPhones. And that's just a simple fact. You can argue about that whatever you want. You can say iPhones are more popular. I will agree iPhones are probably more popular in the US. But if you look at, like, again, on a global scale, Android is the world's most popular mobile operating system. And that is what's running on the DTEK50. BlackBerry got their start in making Android phones with the BlackBerry Priv, which was supposed to be a really secure Android phone, and at the time it had like the best specs, a Snapdragon 808 I believe. It had a nice screen, a 21 megapixel camera if I remember correctly. It was a pretty nice phone, but it wasn't received very well based on its form factor and its general performance. So then BlackBerry made the DTEK50, and there's an upgraded model called the DTEK60, and their newest model is called the Key 1, which has had a few rough bumps. Some users have been experiencing the screen popping off of the phone, which is a huge flaw. The Sprint model of the phone constantly reinstalls bloatware and extra apps that you don't want. So BlackBerry isn't really having the best track record in Android devices. So let's go ahead and get into specifically the DTEK50. So the DTEK50, the first thing you'll see when you pick it up on the front of the phone is this 5-inch display. Now it's not really 5 inches, it's like 4.9 something. It's pretty much a 5-inch display. Now what I do like about this display, again, one of the few things I like about the phone itself, is that this is a full HD display. Now I know a lot of phones are now making the switch to Quad HD. Some phones are even dabbling with the idea of 4K. That's very few, but some of them are. But honestly, a 1080p panel is a huge upgrade from what I'm used to using, which is a 480p panel on my Samsung Galaxy S2, which has been featured in several videos on the channel. So it is a 5-inch 1080p display. It is an LCD display, and that's a bit of a problem for me because even the S2's old AMOLED display looks a lot better than this display when we're talking about colors, color reproduction, how punchy the display is. It's a more saturated display, and a lot of people don't really like saturated displays, but I am one of those people that do like saturated displays. So moving from an AMOLED display to an LCD display is a little off-putting for me, but once you use the phone for a little while, you get used to it, and it's really not that big of a difference. But if you have a sharp eye, then you really are going to notice a difference in the way colors look. Touch responsiveness on this display is not bad. The screen is a good size for what I need. Personally, I wish it had a slightly bigger display, but I don't mind the size of this display at all. It works perfectly for what I need it to work for. Touch responsiveness is decent. This phone isn't a particularly expensive device. I believe it was around $200-300, maybe even a little bit more if I remember correctly. But this isn't a particularly expensive phone. You could probably buy it really cheap right now since it's an older device. So for a cheap device such as this, touch responsiveness and touch lag is really not all that bad. Probably my favorite feature of this phone, and one of the, actually pretty much the only reason why I can't say that I completely hate this phone, is the front-facing speakers. So these are dual front-facing speakers. If I can get that to focus on those. So that's one of them right up there. And then if we slide the phone down, I know it's blurry, but just give it a second. There you go. If we slide the phone down, we've got the other one. Now these, the grills for these speakers seem small, but these speakers pack a lot of punch. Now something that I believe I covered in the first video on this phone, a lot of people think that this right here and this right here are also speakers. You are wrong. Now I'm not going to do this on my device because I do use this and it's very hard to get these back on, but you'll notice that the fake speaker grills on the back here, as well as the real ones on the front, are covered by stickers. It's not actually rubber, they're just stickers that can actually be quite easily pulled off. Underneath the ones on the back is just a bare spot. So a lot of people were thinking, oh, you can put the phone face down and the audio will still project out of the rear of the phone. That's not true. If you watch Jerry Rig Everything's video, which I will link in the description below, he made a great video, teardown, and not a teardown, it was a durability test on the Blackberry DTEK50. He pulled off the stickers on the back, and underneath those stickers is just a flat spot. So there are no speakers back there, but the speakers on the front are really, really good. So in order to prove to you that even though the grills are small, the speakers are good, I'm going to try to find some good copyright-free music on YouTube with quite a bit of bass, because these speakers do excel a lot when it comes to bass. So copyright-free music. Sorry if you can hear my fan in the background. It's very, very hot here. Let me go ahead and turn that off real quick. So it should be fairly quiet. Let's go ahead and so you can see, I don't know, it might not come across very well on the microphone, but these speakers get really loud and they're full of bass.
Bowser, why are you always figuring it out?
Can't concentrate. Too much liquor and it concentrate. My state of mind is intoxicated. Uptons, had a raw acting fake, and it's crazy. I didn't want to take shots. Stage fly, undercover ops, put him in a blade box. Like my homie when he got it, did it on the paper. I had to meditate, but I can't stop. What the fuck are they are? What's going on? This type of question that you ask, but alone is a room full of people. I could barely breathe.
So that's just a quick sample of the speakers. They're really, really great. They're really loud. There are a lot of songs that I wish I could like show you how good these speakers are. They're full of bass, but of course those songs are copyrighted. But trust me, playing music out loud on this phone is a great experience. I do it a lot when I'm on the bus with my friends. If I'm walking to the bus stop, I will just blast my music out loud. It's not like so loud to the point where it gets like annoying, but it's loud enough where like it's really going to provide one of the best audio experiences you'll find on any smartphone. So that's one of the things I do really like about this phone. Below the top front-facing speaker is the front-facing camera. Now this is a 5 megapixel, it's either a 5 or an 8 megapixel front-facing camera. It doesn't matter because it's horrible. I'm just going to come out and say it. The front-facing camera on this phone is horrible. Most people now use their front-facing cameras for selfies on Snapchat, Instagram, whatever. It's horrible for Snapchat. It's horrible for Instagram. It's horrible just in general. The front-facing camera, the lighting, like you have to have really, really good lighting in order to use this front-facing camera. It's just a really grainy front-facing camera. it doesn't pick up a lot of detail or a lot of quality. I'm sweating right now really badly, but I guess I'll just take a quick, let me see if I can find any pictures in my camera roll that I can show off that that I've used the front-facing camera for. Now, the rear-facing camera, however, is a completely different story. While it also does require you to have really good lighting, in lower lighting situations, it's not super horrible. So I don't usually take selfies, at least not with the front-facing camera, so I can't show you like good, I can't show a good example of the front-facing camera. So I'm just going to go ahead and snap a quick picture here. Alright, so there you go. My hair, it won't come across well on camera. I'll put a cutout of the picture up on the display. But, I mean, I do look really dark in this picture. Trust me, it doesn't look that bad in the actual picture, but I'm just a really dark person in general. So, I mean, zooming in, you really lose a lot of quality. I mean, just look at the carpet behind me. Again, you'll be able to see all of this actually on screen, but just look at the quality of the carpet when the picture is zoomed in. It's super horrible. The colors are washed out. It's really not all that great. So the front-facing camera is a flop. It's horrible for any application, really. I mean, if you're just clowning around, it's fine, but turn on the fan again. But if you really want to use it for Snapchat, Instagram, even video calling, the front-facing camera is horrible. So I wouldn't even really bother with it unless you absolutely have to use it. So that's why I use that's why most of the pictures or snaps that I'll take that I would want to include my face, unless I'm using like one of the Snapchat lenses, I'll just stand in front of a mirror and use the rear-facing camera. So taking another look around the device, on the left side we do have our power button along with the metal on the sides. This is actually metal, which is another one of the few reasons that makes me not completely hate this phone. The metal does feel really good in the hands. It's quality. The phone is actually a pretty sturdy device, and the rubber on the back is a nice texture. On the bottom of the phone we do have our microphone and 2 antenna bands for signal through the metal, as well as our micro USB charging port. No Type-C, unfortunately. On the right side we have our Blackberry convenience key, which can be mapped to different shortcuts, our volume buttons, and up top we have a noise cancelling microphone, 2 antenna pass-throughs, and a 3.5mm headphone jack. It's crazy to think that some phones don't have that. Anyways, so on the back, again, we have the fake speaker grills, the Blackberry logo, a dual flash. Now, I don't take a lot of pictures in general with my phone, but I did try to take a few more than I usually do, just to show off for this review. Now, the rear-facing camera there, let's go ahead and zoom on that just because. Focus. Focus. There you go. Is a 13 megapixel camera. I don't remember if it has OIS, but on a phone like this, I don't think it does. Let me know in the comments if you guys know if the DTEK50 does have OIS, but I don't believe it does. Now the rear-facing camera on the DTEK50 is, again, like I said, a whole nother story. The rear-facing camera on the DTEK50 is actually decent. I didn't get a lot of colorful shots, but here's a picture of a bush tree type thing that we're growing in our front yard. We ate out at Ruby Tuesdays. No. Was it Ruby Tuesdays? No, it was Applebee's. I'm so stupid. Here is a picture of my food. It actually tasted really, really good. But this was a really nice picture, actually. Here is, I believe this was at church. No, can't show that. Simply because it has my friends in it and don't have consent. Not trying to get in trouble for those little kinds of things. My sister went to NC State for a summer program, so I took a picture of a building. So basically this is just to show off how it does in terms of color reproduction, with the sky contrasting with the trees and the building in the background. And I thought the camera did a pretty nice job of that. Now this is one of those situations where the camera is not bad. I tried to take a picture of a rainbow that was on the ceiling, and again you'll see this on screen, but if you zoom in you can see a loss of quality. It gets really grainy and soft when you zoom in to like the ceiling. Here are some pictures that I took of a rabbit that I saw on a bike ride. Again, this picture was taken using zoom, so if we zoom in, excuse me, if we zoom in, you can see there's a lot of loss of quality when it comes to the rabbit's fur and detail on the grass. There's not a lot of it. So in good lighting conditions, this camera is pretty good. But if you've got like if you don't have good lighting conditions, not everything is right, then again some things are going to be off. Here is a picture I took of a Corvette that I saw, which I thought was pretty neat. Zooming in, now this one doesn't lose too much quality when you zoom in. This one was actually taken in decent lighting, but you can judge for yourself if that's a good picture. It's definitely not going to do nearly as well as something like a Galaxy S8 will do, but it's a decent picture. Now this was on the last day of school. They won't mind me showing. This is some of my friends. The camera's picking up on their faces. You can see that the picture, you might not be able to, it might not come across very well on camera, but you can see that the picture is kind of yellowed out. More especially, oh goodness, I almost knocked over the camera. That would not have been good. More especially in some of the other pictures. This one is a kind of a good representation of the yellowing. You can see it's a really yellow picture. The yellowing was pretty bad in this one and in that one. So the yellowing was pretty bad in all of the pictures that were taken in the gym, but that could have just been the lighting. But then again, I'm sure other cameras would have handled those situations a lot better. So that's it for like around the hardware. Now in terms of specs, the DTEK50 is carrying 3 gigs of RAM. Actually, I'm not even really sure about that, but I can check in the settings. I don't have these things written down like a lot of tech reviewers do. I probably should start doing that because it is a good idea, but I try not to script these things so it just flows from my mind. I feel like that's kind of a better way to do it. Okay, so it says total memory is 2.8, so that's 3 gigs of RAM. So it's got a Snapdragon 617 paired with 3 gigs of RAM. Those are 2016 mid-range specs, which are fine-ish. It really depends on what you use your phone for. So Snapdragon 617 paired with 3 gigs of RAM, 16 gigs of internal storage. You actually get a decent amount available, but it's 16 gigs of storage. You can't really do much with that. You do have expandable storage with an SD card slot of up to 2 terabytes. I slapped an 8 gig micro SD card in there that I already had to expand my storage a little bit. Again, front-facing camera 5 megapixels, rear-facing camera 13 megapixels with a dual LED flash. The front-facing camera actually takes advantage of the notification light on the front and uses that as a flash. You've got micro USB, so that's USB 2.0 speeds. Nothing fast. The 617 does support Qualcomm Quick Charge 2.0, So I don't remember like the exact stats and numbers and times for the charging, but it does charge fairly quickly with the included charger. It's in the box. It doesn't specify if it's a quick charge 2.0 charger. I'm not sure if Blackberry included a quick charge 2.0 charger in the box, but it's not bad when it comes to charging speeds. Now the battery, I believe, is a 2610 milliamp hour battery. Again, correct me down in the comments if I am wrong, but I believe it is a 2610 milliamp hour battery. I can actually check on that real quick. Battery life is, again, so yeah, 2610. So I guess leading off of the battery, we can get into some of the things, the things that I mentioned at the beginning of the video that I said that you should take note of, because they are kind of critical to a smartphone and to your smartphone experience. So the first thing that I want you to take note of, that I wanted you to take note of, is the fact that my phone is charging and it is plugged in. So I remember at the beginning of the video it was about 19% and it's at 34%. So the percentage has almost doubled in about 20 minutes. So if that's not quick charging speeds, let me know, because I'm not exactly sure. But it charges pretty quickly. That's not my problem. The problem is the fact that I am charging it right now. Not too long ago, a few hours to be exact, and I can find out exactly when, I charged this phone to 100%. Okay, so at 2 o'clock, the phone was charged to 100. Alright, at 2 o'clock, the phone was at 100%. At around 7, 8 this morning, the phone was also at 100%. I went for an open house, or orientation really, there's apparently a difference, whatever. I went to my school to get my schedule, walk around the school, take a quick tour. My phone was at 100% when we left the house. We got in the car, I was playing some music on Spotify, nothing else was running, I wasn't doing anything else on the phone, the screen was off, and I was playing Spotify in the background. Dropped to about 89%. When we were leaving, and we were there from 8 to 11, I didn't even really use the phone. When we were leaving, the phone's percentage had dropped to about 34%. And when I got home, it was around 19. So I had to charge it up to 100. And that didn't even last me that long until it hit 19 again, and I'm charging it now. So I'm not sure if I covered this in the first video, but I had really good battery life in the beginning. The battery life was great, like it was amazing. I charged the phone to 100, went to school, came back, I still had half my battery left. I turned it off. I was able to use the phone into the next day using the remaining percentage and not have to charge it until like around noon. Like, the battery life was extremely impressive for me. And then as time went on, it got worse, and it got so much worse. The phone barely lasts at all. I mean, it lasts longer than my Galaxy S2, but oh, it's out of focus. Focus. Come on. Sorry about that. It lasts longer than my Galaxy S2, but it's not beating the S2 out by that much, honestly. So that's one of the things that you do need to keep in mind. There are a lot of phones out there that have the same size battery, maybe just a little bit bigger, maybe just a little bit smaller, that are able to manage that power a lot more efficiently than the DTEK50 seems to be managing it. The battery life is just horrible. And that's one of the most important things when it comes to a smartphone. You want a phone that's battery is going to last long enough for you to be able to do whatever you want and maybe only charge it once a day, if not none before the next day. The second thing that I would like to point out, or that I wanted you guys to take note of at the beginning of the video, is the fact that I do not have the case on. And this is actually a very important thing. I got home, and when I got home, the phone was really, really hot.
Ah, my hand, that's hot! This one's hot too!
Okay, the phone was hot. Like, to the touch, like if you hold your hand on the phone, at that point you could feel the phone like, so it had an update to do, so I let it cool down for a little bit, then I plugged it in and let it do the update, which, another thing that I would like to mention, that the phone is fully compatible with Android 7.0, it has all the required specs, but it's been a while, and this phone still doesn't have Android 7.0, and I believe that there are other Android smartphones with the same chipset and same specs that have Android 7.0 already, while this phone doesn't. Another thing that I'm extremely disappointed in when it comes to Blackberry and their Android experience. But back to the story. So I plugged it in, and when it finished the update, it was extremely hot. Like, hotter than it was before. So I took off the case, because I noticed that when the case is on, it conducts even more heat, and it gets even hotter, and it just gets a lot worse. So when it heats up, the battery drops very quickly, which is a huge issue, and that's to be expected, but the point is, it shouldn't be getting that hot. Especially with the light usage. I mean, streaming Spotify is really light usage. It's not like I'm out here, I got a controller connected, it's plugged into a charger, I'm powering Bluetooth earphones, and I'm like playing Asphalt 8 or some graphically intensive game. It's not like I'm gaming hard. I'm just sitting in the car listening to Spotify, and the phone is heating up. And another thing about the DTEK50 and when it heats up, say goodbye to your data, say goodbye to your Wi-Fi and all your signal and your ability to really do anything. Because once it heats up, again, it heats up, battery drops. Performance drops to the floor. It gets extremely laggy, and I have to leave it off for like at least an hour, maybe even more, for it to fully cool down and return to its normal performance state. So performance drops, battery life drops, signal. In places where I normally get really strong signal, I don't get any signal at all when the phone is really hot. I don't know why, but I don't. And then places where I get like a strong data connection and it's always really, really fast, in those places when my phone is heating up, the data is extremely slow, and I have no clue why. Maybe it's throttling the data speeds to compensate for the fact that the phone is hot. I really don't know. So like I'll have there was a time my my data had reset because it was that time of the month, and my data had reset, so I had my full data to use for the month, and my phone started heating up just randomly. I was on Snapchat and I was listening to Spotify. That's a pretty light task. Just on Snapchat, listening to Spotify, social media, and listening to music. That's really not that heavy or graphically intensive. So I'm doing that, right? And my phone starts to heat up. So I think, okay, let me just turn it off for a few minutes and then turn it back on. It's still hot. So I turn it back on because there are some things I need to do. There were some important conversations I was having with some of my friends. Not necessarily important, I just really wanted to talk to my friends because I was kind of bored. So I turned the phone back on. It was still hot, like really hot. So I just sat it down on the seat because I didn't want to touch the phone while it was that hot. So I was still using it, which was probably a really dumb thing to do, but I was. And the data started to really slow down. And I got a little confused, so I swiped down, I checked my data usage, and I was still good to go. I had plenty of data to use, and the data was super slow. Excuse me. The data was extremely slow. I had super strong signal, plenty of data left, but the phone was heating up and the data signal was low. So, this has been a pretty long video, and I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing me mumble and stutter and struggle to get my opinion out on this phone. But there is one thing that I can say very, very clearly. Do not buy the Blackberry DTEK50. Do not buy the Blackberry DTEK60. Do not buy the Blackberry Key 1. Do not buy any Android phone from Blackberry. Now, I can't necessarily say this for the Key 1, but I can say this for the DTEK60 and I can say this for the DTEK50. Do not buy them. Well, I can't really say this for the 60 either, but considering that the 60 and the 50 are pretty similar, I would still tell you to stay clear of both of them. Except for like one or two things, the DTEK50 is a horrible phone. Don't hesitate to say it. It is one of the worst phones I have ever laid eyes on. It's terrible. At first glance, it looks like a pretty nicely put together device. It's got a great build quality. It may look pretty interesting. It's got those nice front-facing speakers. That's really where all the good things end. Once you use the phone for maybe 2 or 3 days, the performance drops, the battery endurance drops, the phone heats up at just random intervals, even when you're not even using the phone. If the phone's just charging, even using the standard charger that came in the box, the phone's just heating up. It's crazy how horrible this phone is. And I'm sure there are worse phones out there. Phones with worse performance, worse battery life. But honestly, I can't confidently recommend this phone to anybody, at least not with a straight face. I mean, the only reason why I'm using this phone is because I don't really have a choice. I mean, because it does have a 64-bit architecture, which you may not know what that means. It just means the processor is just a bit more powerful in really simple terms. It can run apps and games better than my S2 can, so it is a bit of an upgrade. But the fact that it still doesn't have Android 7.0 and the performance is horrible just really makes me want to start using my S2 again. Because even though the S2's battery life was horrible and its performance was horrible, that was with it running the absolute newest version of Android. And that thing runs Android 7.0 better than 7.1.2 actually. Better than this phone runs Android 6.0. And it's crazy because Android 6.0 doesn't even have all the advanced virtual reality implementations that Google has put into Android 7.0. So, by comparison, Android 6.0 is an extremely light operating system. My S2 is running Android 7.1.2, and it runs that arguably a bit better than this runs Android 6.0. And I've got the newest emojis, I've got the newest APIs, so I can download more apps. I may not be able to run them because of the specs of the S2, but the experience overall is better on the S2, honestly. So, the DTEK50 for me is a hard sell. Obviously, I didn't actually spend any money on it, so I didn't lose. I'm grateful that I have the phone to use because on a scale, it is a bit better than the phone that I was using. So I'm not complaining that I have a brand new phone. I'm sure a bunch of people would kill to have a phone like this. I'm not complaining that I have a brand new phone. I'm just simply pointing out the flaws that the device has and telling you that if you're in the market for a phone, that you should look somewhere else. Because while I'm using it and I am somewhat satisfied with its experience, I definitely, if I had a choice to use another phone, I would use another phone. And I wouldn't recommend that anybody buy this phone. I'm just speaking my opinion. I'm sure other people have other opinions. I'm sure maybe other people have had better experiences with the phone. Maybe I just got a faulty unit, but I don't think the DTEK50 is worth the money, even for a budget smartphone. So yeah, guys, that was kind of my rant on the DTEK50. I didn't talk all trash about it. Again, there are some good attributes to this phone. It's got great front-facing speakers. The rear-facing camera is decent. Charging speeds are pretty nice. The display is a nice one, but I don't know if that would be enough for me. I mean, I know it's not enough for me to overlook the device's other flaws, but the real question is, because this is really a review for you, the viewer, this is to help you decide, do you really want to buy this phone? So I guess the question that you need to ask yourself, really, I mean, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter what my opinion is. The question that you need to be asking, the question that you need to be asking yourself is, are all of the good things about this phone enough for me to overlook all of the bad things about this phone? So, to sum it up, all of the good things about this phone, and I would know, I've been using this phone for a considerable amount of time. The display, the rear-facing camera, the charging speed, and the speakers. So, that's 4 things. And are those 4 things enough for you to overlook data throttling, massive heat issues, an old version of Android, terrible front-facing camera, this awkward power button placement? I wouldn't really list that up there. Sorry, I lost track. So, data throttling, major heat issues, an old version of Android, terrible front-facing camera, horrible battery life, and horrible performance. So that's 4 against 6, 4 pros and 6 cons. I don't know if that ratio is horrible enough for you or it's fine, but again, that's a decision that you need to make within yourself. Is this really a phone that you want to buy? And for just a little bit more money, you can get much better phones. Motorola has a lot of great offerings, like the Moto Z2 Play. That's a mid-range phone that definitely performs a lot better and has Android 7.1, a much better camera with laser autofocus. So really, you need to ask yourself, can I overlook those cons, focus on these pros, and bring myself to spend the money on this phone? That's it for this video, guys. I will see you in the next one. Make sure to leave a comment, subscribe, and like if you enjoyed this video. Hope you guys have a great day. Peace out.